Hey guys, welcome back to my workbench. Dan here as always, and it is the end of April already. We're just flying through this year. We're already coming up on May, which is right around the corner now. It might even be May by the time you watch this video. So what I wanted to come do is go ahead and get you guys updated on the projects that I've been working on, and I've been working on quite a bit of stuff, a bit of a difference in rolling stock here and there. I wanted to go ahead and focus on some of the cars that I have been doing. These two in particular, to go ahead and get us kicked off, are cars that I've actually done to sell off. These are cars I already have buyers for, so they're already basically in the box and ready to ship, so to speak. I'm still in the process of finishing the one in the back here, but I wanted to show this one first. These are all NSC plastic pellet cars that I've been saving in my basement. I've been keeping these in storage and waiting till I needed to make funds to buy different models or things like that to go ahead and whip these up and sell them. They're really just there so I can quickly make some cars I can sell off and get funds to buy models. That's how I am able to afford like my OVR guns. And what's coming up next is the Aurora boxcars, the accurate TATX style boxcars that I'm looking forward to. So I need to make some money to get ready to buy those. And I've also purchased some more Sulfur tank cars recently, so that's why I ended up having to make these. But the first one I did was this UTCX covered hopper here, and this is a really nice model. And you can see with this car, what I did was I just hand weathered it using some acrylic washes. I did some custom painted graffiti on the side. This is based on a photo of a similar UTC prototype that had this really unique graffiti that I really liked. And I did the graffiti on the sides using paint pens, and I also used some acrylic techniques, and then the rest is just done with markers. You got some fine scribble tag work and some other little effects. On the sides I did a lot of dot rust technique. I did a little bit of side scraping. And then on the sides as well, I added the safety tape. The underbody is completely weathered, including the trucks, of course, the base, lots of kick-up splatter, which we'll highlight in a second. On the roof, you can see it's got the really nice, dirty anti-skid paint. That's something I like to do on all these covered hoppers. A lot of people miss that, but a lot of these cars have this kind of tread coating, right? And they apply it, and it usually starts to peel off. This one in the back is a better example, but we'll get to that. You can see I did a variation and replaced an older roof walk weathering here, so you can see a lot of them are pretty rusty. And then on the opposite side here, if we turn this guy around, you can see I added some more graffiti on this side, and it turned out pretty good. I just used some prototype photos of a similar car because I couldn't find this exact number, but I was able to do all that really nicely. You can see all the kick up and grime on the underbase. There's a lot of nice end weathering. Got a little splatter and stuff like that. All the usual kinds of little tricks I like to do to these things. So this car is going to be packed up today. I'm going to be shipping it out to a guy in Las Vegas. So really hate to see it go. It's a really nice car. I'd like to keep it, but I made it to sell, so that's going to be that guy. This next one here is one that I'm still finishing up. I gotta apply some decals to it and then get it ready for clear coating, but I applied some graffiti so far, and I did all the weathering to the top there. But this is one of my Porn Kings covered hoppers. These guys have been selling really well. I've done 4 so far. This is number 5, and I still got one more to do because there's a guy in California who really wants one, so I'm going to be making one for him as well. And these are again in the NSC plastic pellet type car. It's not an accurate style car for this particular bit of graffiti, but it's the closest that I have. So I just hand painted all this according to prototype photos. This is an MWCX car, so I gotta renumber it and patch it here, as you can see, and then finish the weathering. But it's a really funny car, and one I had been waiting to make until now. So I've been making a couple of these and selling them off. Here on the top, you can see I did the really nice rust on the walkway panels again, and then the top here has the really nice chipping and peeling anti-skid coating to the top. That's again very common on cars like these, where you see this over time it starts to peel away, and you get this really cool weathering effect. And that's super easy to do. It's just hand painting some gray acrylic on there and then peeling most of it off using a wet Q-tip. So that's going to be the 2 cars that I have on the bench currently that I wanted to go ahead and show before I finish them up and get rid of them. But I really like both of these cars. They're super nice, and they will be heading out the door. So I've been working on some Sulfur tank cars, and these have all been Walther's proto tank cars so far. So I have 3 that I finished that are all pretty much stock, other than the fact that I renumbered them and changed the couplers to KDs. But they're all proto-weathered. I just used some reference photos again like I did the first time around with the first cars I made. And most of these get this brown rust wash all over them, so I used an airbrush to tint the paint over from dark black to this grime color. Once I did that, I changed the data on some of them, I added the safety striping, and I renumbered all of them according to what decals I still had available. So these are mainline, or rather unit train weathered cars, meaning I don't go into as much detail as I normally would if I was making individual freight cars. These are just weathered mostly with powders to do the underbody kick-up, for example, doing the trucks and wheels. And the only real detail I go into is really at the top. I'll like to hit the top hatch around with a little bit of powder. You got a lot of sulfur splatter, for example. This one here I tried to go into a little bit more detail with. I tried to replicate a repaint area where they just went in and repatched the top portion around the hatch. There's some re-stenciled data and other things like that. This one's got a lot of sulfur spillage, but it's still weathered relatively simply in terms of the kind of weathering. It's a unit train ready car, so that's that one. And then the third one here is another just relatively lightly weathered in-service car. It's got the grime wash on it, lots of sulfur spillage, all the rust and grime on the trucks, the new KD couplers, safety striping is added. I added some new stenciling just here and there to update it. And then at the top, again, you got all that rust around the top hatch portion. And here's the opposite side, which has a little bit of graffiti for interest. You can see I just replicated that off some photos. You can see it's got some little bits of spray over, and it's just starting to kind of grime over, indicating that it's a little bit older. But that's the first 3 black sulfur cars that I've done, and I got 2 yellow ones that I'll go ahead and show next. So this next sulfur car is one of the yellow TILX cars. These are super rare now, and with this one I just did a grime fade at the top. I did a lot of kick up and grime on the underbody, and you can see I did a lot of weathering work here. You can see I tried to do the splatter wash that sprays up the tank body there. You can see that really subtle effect. That's a combination of oil work and powder to do that. On the sides, I modernized the data a little bit, so I changed it to how it was on the stock prototype. I put the new stencils there, a new hazmat table, or not a hazmat table, but a tank inspection table, I should say. Rusted up the placards there, lots of grime and weathering on the trucks. And then I also did the panel washes there. And as you can see at the top there's a lot of rust coming down from that hatch area. Lots of rust work around the hatch as well. And then the car body is completely covered in all these tiny little rust pits, which I can get a good shot of. And I'll have a how-to coming out on how I achieved this technique. It's super easy. You use a Pigma Micron pen to just simply paint on the dots, and then you streak them down just like you would with acrylic, oil, or anything else. It's super easy to do, so I'll have a how-to coming out on that. But I use that technique for this car. On the ends you got all the kick-up spray, all that grime work, all that splatter, and you can see it just turned out super well on this car. It helps because it's a bright car in that terms of the paint job. It really helps to expose a lot of that really fine splatter work that you get on these cars, because a lot of times on the black tank cars you don't see a lot of that splatter is defined, I guess. But with the yellow cars it's very visible. So I really tried to go into detail when doing that. And you can see again there's all kinds of rust work at the top. On the opposite side again you have a lot of the same kind of techniques here. You got a lot of rust splatter, a lot of rust running down the top. Sorry about that, guys, my tripod is collapsing on me here. I recently messed up a leg, but anyways, you can see again just updated the tank car data. I added the safety striping, and I also renumbered this car as well because I already have several numbers and I needed to renumber that. So I changed the number on this guy as well, and then of course the KD couplers. But it's a super nice car. And then this last car is a TCPX prototype, and again, just like the TLX car, I updated the couplers, a lot of the hazmat data. I renumbered this car as well so that it has a new number, because I do have multiple numbers of these cars. So I got a data sheet done where Circus City Decals made me a whole bunch of different decals and renumbering sets for a lot of these different cars. He also made me a lot of these nice stencils like the 2448 hazmat and then the molten sulfur stencils there. Those are all custom decals, so I applied those to the car. And just like before, I did all of that really nice kick-up spray and streaking that runs down the base of the car body. You can see it's all at the base of the car there. You got all the nice weathering on the trucks and just a lot of grime on that underbody. Again, it's fantastic. It's many hours of just building that up with powders and oils. You can see the really interesting complex patchwork on the side. It's just where they stenciled over old reporting mark, or not reporting mark, but data and everything like that. As it gets updated, they don't usually do a very good job of removing it. They'll just spray paint over it and then often just re-stencil over it. So I tried to replicate that with this particular car, same thing with the ends, and it turned out pretty good. Again, on this side, you got all the nice kick up, and then on this side as well, the updated data, and a slight difference in some of that stenciling. Again, I always try to make things different between the sides. I don't like to have duplicate artwork on both sides. This one's interesting because you can see the rust work is really concentrated behind that ladder, but the car body itself is actually relatively clean, which is unusual for one of these older yellow cars, because a lot of these have the build dates from the 1998, 1999, somewhere around there, and so the paint's actually aged pretty well on this car. Again, you can see all the fine rust dots and everything like that, all the rust work around the hatches, and some more patching. Very nice car, ready to go into service. Okay, these next two cars have been on the video at least 2 times beforehand. I finally got them finished. 100% finished this time, I should say. The last couple times you guys saw these, they were either in the stage of being assembled or painted, or they were missing some decals, and the last time I showed them, they didn't have rock loads. These are both DJJX rock cars, as I like to call them. They're just old gondolas that they've converted for scrap and rock aggregate service, things like that. There's a quarry near Cary, Ohio that takes a lot of these stone loads, and many of these cars come through regularly on the CSX local freights that bring in the trash through the Fostoria area, which is, of course, where I'm modeling. And I wanted to make a couple of these cars. Both of these are former railguns. One of them is a complete repaint, and one of them is an original railgun. So I've already talked about most of the weathering effects and things like that, so I'll try to brush over these really relatively quickly. But what I did was I did a complete repanel to the sides of the cars by doing the styrene panel trick. I also warped this one pretty good by bedding the center of the car using boiling water and some weights. I'll have to make a video on how I do this, but it's actually quite simple. It takes a little messing around with to get it just right, but it works out fine. I made custom DJJ decals for these, and then I did all the custom decaling on the sides. Weathering, of course, you can see all the nice panel bulging, all the rust streaks and everything like that, a little bit of splatter down the side, and of course the rock load. This is actual limestone. I did a foam insert and then glued all the rock down, and it turned out pretty good. On the opposite side here, sorry I keep bumping the camera, guys. On the opposite side here, again, you got some relatively simple weathering in terms of, I mean, what's there. It's an older car, but it got a black dip probably 2018, 2019. It's just starting to kind of rust back over, as you can see, but it's in relatively good shape. The second car here is a replacement 318-026 to the first one I did. I was never quite satisfied with the quality of the first DJTX gun I did, which was this exact number, and it had kind of been in the back of my mind to try to redo the car, and I finally got around to doing it last year. And so this is again the same process as this one here. I just used an Athearn gondola. I weathered it up, added new paneling, some patching, safety striping, new decals, and I just recently fitted the rock load to this one as well. But this is one of my personal favorites because I really like these DJ railguns. These are really cool looking cars, especially when you can find them in original paint like this. There's a lot of really nice rust technique on the sides. A lot of it's just oil layering, and then it's followed behind with some powders and things like that to do some of the fresher rust. All the patching is really beat up, and you can just see the wonderful amount of work that I put into it, and it turned out super nice. I also should mention both of these have full car body underframe detailing. You can see all that's installed. It looks super nice. I'm really happy with both of these cars, especially now that they're completed with the loads. I got to get some pictures of these, and then I'm going to put them back into my storage drawer, but I'm super satisfied with both of these models. First boxcar I'm showing in this video is a T-Box boxcar. I love these, and this is one of the newer Atlas cars, and I know the quality is obviously not, 100% the best. I had my complaints with these, but once I installed new air hoses and new couplers and some other details to these, honestly, they're not bad. They work well with my Athearn Genesis cars and other boxes similar to that, but I really do feel like Atlas did kind of drop the ball a little bit on the quality of detailing, especially for how much hype went into these cars and for the price point. It's honestly unfortunate, but I tried to make this first one here look relatively nice. This one is relatively clean. I just did a gloss coat on the sides, some light grime. The highlights here are the graffiti. You can see there's a lot of hand-painted graffiti here, all done off of prototype photos. Not the exact number, but a similar number. You can see there's a lot of scribble on the sides. That's another thing you typically see. Notice how the graffiti artist worked around the car data. That's something that's very important when you model modern graffiti on these cars. You'll see a lot of times these artists are very careful not to obscure car numbers, car data, even small stenciling and things like that. You notice on the doors there even how they worked that artwork around that. It's very tedious to do, hand painting that, but it's worth it in the end because you get this really cool realistic effect. Again, you can see all the really nice hand scribble there and things like that. The custom air hoses, blue bearing caps, hand painted there, underbody grime, just a light wash on the roof. And on the opposite side here, again, a little bit of a difference in the patching. You could see this artist was a little bit more clumsy the way he sprayed this out. You can see it's got some patch out areas here where they just completely redid the data over the graffiti and then applied safety striping over it. But again, pretty much same kind of weathering effects, very, very light weathering. It's a relatively newer car, so I wanted to try to keep it that way. I just worked the graffiti around some of the data, and then other areas I just completely repatched the graffiti over, patched over the graffiti, I should say, with new data. I want to point out the door area here. You can see I did some really neat graffiti there. That's Cats, if any of you have watched Courage the Cowardly Dog. He's one of my favorite villains, I guess, from that show. And I was like, hell, I'll put him on one of my boxcars just because I had some room on this one. And he actually fitted real nicely onto the corner of that door there. So I thought that was really cool. So I hand painted all that. And of course, all this other art here. It's all hand painted using acrylic paints. Again, tedious, but it's worth it in the end if you can make it look nice. This car here is the last 4750 I completed over my hopper weathering season, which I considered to be late fall into early year. Usually over winter time, I like to complete a lot of these covered hoppers for my salt train. I've been doing this for the last 3 years now. This car here has an interesting story. It is mostly weathered by someone else. I bought it on eBay for 50 bucks, and he had already done the patching and the decaling, so I didn't do any of this. All I did was add the wavy panel wash and some of the final rust to the top. But other than that, the rest of the car was actually already weathered. I just went in and added some little highlight effects and enhanced his patchwork overall and enhanced a lot of the rust work. But he did replace the hatches, for example, and some other things. So he was on the right track with the weathering, but it just wasn't exactly up to my standards. So I went in and just basically finished the weathering in a sense. So I added all the rust dots, all the rust pitting, gouging, safety striping, some graffiti. A lot of these finer dots, these are done with Pigma Micron pens, and I have a how-to video coming up again on how I do these little fine dots and little scrapes. So you guys will be able to learn that little trick here, and you can use it on your covered hoppers and other various rolling stock. The underbays look really nice. You can see all that really nice grime, the kick-up spray, and everything like that. Of course, it's all over the end as well. All that kick-up is inside the end cage there. I like to, of course, get in there and get all that nice spray up. Same thing on the other end, the non-brake end. Very nice. Let's see, we need to go to this side. So this side here is the opposite side, and you can see there's no graffiti. It's just more over focusing on the weathering. But I want you guys to take note of that really cool wavy panel wash. I've demonstrated this in a few videos, but I really love to do it on these 4750s. It just always comes out super nice. It's just a matter of doing some basic brush control and knowing exactly how much thinner to use over fresh oil paint, and you can get this really nice wavy wash relatively quickly and easily. After I did the washes, I sealed all that in and then did all the rust pitting and gouging, of course, over that. Again, all the patching on the CNW logo, for example, and some of this other data here was all done for me when I bought the car, so I didn't have to do any of this. I just had to go in and finish the weathering. Alright, I want to throw these in the video here to wrap up. I got these two MRRX cars that I'm working on. These are heavily rebuilt Smoky Valley Railway kits of Southern Railway wood chip cars. These are modified. I did some brake detailing on the underbodies, rebuilt the ends, added plates. I completely redid the ribs on this end portion here. Custom ladders, walkways, and things like that. Those are all added. You can see on the ends there a lot of detailing. When I get these completed, I'll actually go into more detail on how I did the builds and stuff. I just wanted to kind of throw these in the video so you guys can keep an eye out. Maybe by the next update video I'll have these finished, but you can see I did a complete repanel on the sides. So you got all the really nice warped panels, as you can see. It's just incredible. There's all that hand-painted graffiti. So there's the first one. The second one here, I just got the oils on last night. So you can see I hand-painted all of the gouges on the sides. This one's got custom decals added. All the details are applied so far. And it's just basically awaiting a final weathering effect of some fine washes, powder work, and things like that. And then, of course, all the garbage, juice, things like that will come later. Some staining, dust, debris. And then, of course, custom-made loads will go into these as well. And then I got to get trucks for them. But I got couplers installed, air hoses. I got to install coupler lift bars to both of these. Otherwise, they're just about done in terms of detailing. But these are some really, really nice cars that I did. And the first two that I've built, they've actually been sitting in storage in my drawer for 2 years now. I built these 2 years ago, and I hadn't gotten around to actually finishing them. So I'm really excited to actually get these done. And I still got 2 more of these to build. One more blue one and one green one, because all these were originally green, and then they got repainted this blue color. So I'm modeling all the versions. So hopefully I can get these done pretty soon, and you guys will be able to see these in the next video. Okay, so to get us up to date on the layout, I've gotten tons of stuff done. This entire scene is basically finished, or at least I'm calling it that, other than some small details. You know, I can always come out here and add some more stuff. I could always come out and add some vehicles and things to the parking lot in time. But you can see I've added a lot of details. I finished my utility area, other than maybe installing some utility poles and some wiring. We'll show that in a second, but one of the big things I've been having to do out here is address the ballast conditions. And actually, recently, I used a very heavy, thick mixture of glue to come in here and start repairing some of these areas that had really spongy ballast. And using the thick glue mixture really solved the problem. All this hardened up super well. It's rock solid now, and I'm really happy with that. There's still some more areas I got to repair. It's slow work doing all this, but it needs to be done. Even right there, you can still see there's a crack that formed there. We had some colder weather again recently. We went from being really warm to being really cold, and so obviously the temperature change out here is pretty dramatic, and so all this started to crack a little bit. And it's newer ballast, so you know, it's just what's to be expected. So I'm still repairing the ballast out here. One of the big things I recently did is I installed a new switch for what would be called the east center, not east center siding, but east siding, I think, or east set off is what they call it on CSX. And this is just simply to allow cars coming in from either the south or the north to be set off here, and then the local will come in and pick it up. You can see I have some covered hoppers here on this track. This was because I was testing the track out, making sure everything was set up properly after I cleaned it. But this was just something I did recently. I just chopped the old track out, replaced the switch, and then added this new section of track. And as you can see, it runs all the way around there. And if we come underneath the layout again, around to this corner, you can see how it's set up here. So all this is finished in terms of ballast. And you can see all that track runs all the way in the backdrop there. And you can see it comes all the way here where I've dropped in another new switch. This is another Pico. And you can see I've ran the wiring, so this will all be concealed underneath the ballast. I just got to glue it all down. But this is secured and in place, and it's been tested. The locomotives power out right through this entire track, which is wonderful. So that's really nice. Coming into this yard section here, I just started doing a lot of the scenery here, similar to how I did it in the other yard. You can see I've been coming in doing a lot of grass work. You can see there's a lot of weeds and things like that in between the rails there. That's something I think is really important to try to model, especially in these unused tracks where in these areas there's not generally stuff moving. So I wanted to try to replicate that. I also should point out the difference in height between the mainline tracks and the yard tracks. And there's also a difference in yard tracks. The outer yard track is lowest compared to these two tracks here. And then back on that siding, the track is also low again. So you can see that's all something I utilized, worked in, and it's worked out really well because I have the difference in track there. And you can see the well-maintained main line that's really well ballasted compared to the really shabby yard tracks, which are poorly maintained and covered with weeds. We still got to do a lot of weed work in this area, but I have started planting some shrubs and things. This whole area here, I just got a little stash of parks that I got to find homes for, but I finished this parking lot here, and I started adding some other little details. I finished installing my light poles. These are custom made, and I just finished wiring those up, so those have wiring on them. These telegraph poles will get wires eventually, but I'm going to wait till I have all this scenic up in the backdrop. Speaking of the backdrop, I figured out how I want to do this, and this is where we're going to come down to this scene. I recently bought some lumber, and I started trying to make a plan to do backdrop work. So I actually built this guy, and this is the first successful backdrop that I've installed. This one obviously is in a rough position of fitment, but it is screwed in place finally. This was quite a project. You can see it's secured in place. It's just thin panel board that I secured in, and I'm going to have to finish tightening this down a little bit, but you can see it solved the issue of having all this dead space in the back. It'll be able to hide a lot of that, and then I'll be able to scenic right up to it and kind of conceal this. And if I do a backdrop, I'll be able to kind of blend all this together a little bit. It's just a rough shape right now. I got to finish tacking it down, and then of course it'll be painted. And excuse me, oh, I'm tired. I'm super tired actually. I've been working all day, but anyways, I got to paint all that, and then I'll have to blend all this together a little bit. But I'm super happy that I got that done, because that was something I really wanted to get worked on, and I recently got a jigsaw to do it. So once I got this guy, that's how I was able to make my cuts. Just did a super smooth cut there, made a support, I ran it all the way to the top. Got to work on this wall. I won't talk about this too much, but I am going to try to get a new AC unit, and I'm going to do a little bit of insulation inside this area here to further seal up this garage. That's something else. But another thing I got to do is replace these switches. I think I talked about that in the last video. These are the older Pico switches, and these were causing me some problems, so I'm going to probably have to replace those, but I won't have to worry about that for a while. Let's get back down here. Oh yeah, I have all these. These are all models I'm going to be bringing into the house just because I want to store these. That's why they're in this case. I'm going to bring these inside so I can store them. They're all models that I'm putting into storage, because they're either cars I'm going to be putting into my private collection just to save as is. I have locomotives that I want to display, and other locomotives like these that I want to work on, but I have no plans to just jump in and start doing these. These will probably be locomotives I'll be working on over the years, so I'm in no hurry to get any of these done. This is why they're in this box. These are going to be going in the house, and I'm going to be wrapping them up and storing them. Everything else out here is still going to be like ready to go models that I can grab at any time to start working on whenever I feel like it. But I just thought I'd throw that in this video. That's why all that's out here. Big thing I got as well, a dehumidifier. This is something everyone needs for an outdoor or garage layout, especially if you deal with humidity. This is a must-have. I spent a little bit of money on this guy, but it was worth every penny. I'm going to get this set up here. You can see it's pretty much set for a large area too, which is great. So I'm going to get this set up this weekend and get it running, because I'm going to definitely need that. Once it starts getting warm and humid again, I'm going to have to start really working on getting this guy going and set up. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about is the lighting. I really need to get a ladder out here, and what I need to do, if I zoom in on this, well, there's no way that's going to happen. Okay, so these lights out here, I really hate the fact that all this is so dark. I'm going to try to take this light, hopefully this weekend, and shift it over here as close as I can up to this, and I'm going to get some brighter bulbs for that lamp. And hopefully that'll help with some of the lighting in this corner, because as you can see, it does get very dark. All this, both sides, is good. Now, over here, lighting, could be better. This lamp as well. I'm going to unplug this, shift it over a couple feet, probably put it in there, and then I'm going to get better bulbs for it. And that'll hopefully brighten up this garage. So I'm really hoping to get all that done in the next coming weeks. And then of course with this scene here, I got to do some work, but it's all coming along here. You can see I got all the static grass done, all the ballast is done, And I'm going to have to come in here and do some bushes. As you can see, I got some bushes prepped and ready to go. And then I'm going to plant all those here, install other poles and other details, plant some trees, things like that. And we'll pretty much be done with this scene. But I'm so happy that I waited to do this. This is why patience is a virtue, you know. It paid off in the end because I took my time planning all this. And I'm now looking at something that looks super nice. And I know how I want to do my yard henceforth, because all this has turned out really well. So this is what I basically want to repeat for all these additional modules as we go down the line here. So we got a lot more plans to do, but I'm super happy with it. You can see I got some scratch built telephone poles. These are all made from styrene. So these will be getting planted in various places and then wired up, of course. But this is the real trick with this, trying to do these modern model railroads, is because all these details like signals and poles and everything, you got to scratch build because no one makes them. Oh, real quick, I wanted to show you guys, this is the transformer. This is the power feed that's coming in for the plant. You can see it's out here, and I got all this. All these pieces are pretty much scratch built. I did use a Walters kit to get the transformers, insulators, and other little details, but everything else is completely 100% scratch built and installed. It's a lot of work, but that's what it takes, you know. If you want to make this stuff and you want to make it right, you gotta be willing to put in some work. So, but you can see I got some little markers and other little things, and some other details will go in here, and of course some wiring. In time, get all this wired up, and it'll look real nice. But I'm so happy with the entire scene now. It's just come along super well. Okay, to go ahead and wrap up here. These are all the other cars that I finished, but I'm going to save these for the next video, just because I still got to do some more stuff to these. And then all these cars here I'm currently sorting through, but they're from my personal collection that I'm kind of in the process of moving out, so try to get these out. And I got some other stuff that I got to sort through, but I'm really starting to get everything put away now. I got a few more locomotives that I'm working on too. We'll talk about this one next video. That'll be pretty interesting. And then I'm working on 6337 to finish it up. So by next video this should be done. I know I've said that a couple times now, but it will be done by next video. And then this guy here, not my locomotive, but I am actually in the process of working on it for a friend. Fixing it up. It's a really cool HLCX laser, so we'll talk about this guy in the next video, but this is what I wanted to put out there. That way you guys have some new material to look over and drool over, if you will. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys, but I appreciate the feedback on the layout and the advice I've been getting, and of course all the great feedback on my models. Thank you for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Subscribe here for more. Take it easy.